Hey everybody, welcome. It's a pleasure to be joining with you all today to have this conversation about the Cosmic Tower. It's going to be a great one. Like we really have some awesome material. Nico's here in Zoom, but joining from Egypt this time, and I am in Texas for a little bit, and yeah, so we got the world covered. And yeah, it's great to see you all coming in. We have a special guest, John Head, who's in Egypt with Nico, and he'll be coming on in a few minutes. But before we jump in with John, there's some questions that came in that are more of a general nature, and we're just going to go through those and then jump into the deeper conversation with the expertise and background that John brings to it. So welcome, everybody. And here we go. First question is, Nico, what is the science of the future and how does it relate to the Cosmic Tower? What does it have to do with subtle energies?
Well, I think that the science of the future is, if you look at, let's see, the old science was really mostly focused in the electromagnetic spectrum, right? And what we can measure with those devices. But I think the science of the future is also what was the ancient science, which acknowledges all the subtle realms that underlie the electromagnetic spectrum. If you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, maybe that's 2 or 3% from our reality, and our current science has in a way excluded the human being, the mental layer, the emotional layer, the life force from the equation and the spiritual planes. And I believe that on an individual level and also on a collective, we are all, awakening, and our awareness of those realms is expanding daily on the planet. And I think science, in a way, has to catch up. And it's not like it's science from the future. This science has been there all along. Some of this is thousands of years old, right? It's never been gone. It's just that what has been portrayed in the mainstream as science and what's been taught in universities is really a very small portion of the spectrum. And I think if you even look at all the traditional healing, Chinese medicine, etc., they're always holistic, right? And they look at the mental and the emotional plane, etc. While science, as it was taught in universities, has always, only been focusing on the electromagnetic spectrum, right? So I think with the Cosmic Tower, it plays an important role in that, because it's about acknowledging the more subtle realms that underlie it. And I think the tower encourages us to expand our minds and our consciousness to including that. So I think they play very nice together.
Yeah, I've been living with the tower for about a year now, and I've been away from Texas for 6 months, and I just came back, and I went for a walk with my dog, and the place that I left, that's like 2 blocks from here, it was, they call it a playa. It's like a collection place where water drains down, and there's a habitat there. There was fish, there were birds, there were rabbits and jackrabbits, and I guess somebody has gotten their permits through, and they've gotten the right to make a profit from that piece of land. And so in the time that I was gone, they took all the water out, and yesterday when I went down there, they had these huge scooping bucket loaders and whatnot, and about 10 of these massive dumping trucks, and they were just scooping the land right out. And the guy who owns that property, his business card is what we're used to seeing oil or milk or water carried in on the highway, like one of those long cylinders that has writing on the side, and has the name of his building company, and he's hung it up in the air on the side of this property to let the world know, like, he's leaving his mark. And as he's leaving his mark, like he's utterly and completely destroying the natural environment that was there. And later on, we're going to have people who are experiencing flash flooding because the water's got nowhere to go, and they're living in electrical, unnatural environments, and they're wondering why they don't feel right in life. And it just like, I wouldn't have felt that last year. I wouldn't have noticed it in the same way. And it felt like rape to me. It felt like the land was just absolutely being utterly and completely destroyed. And so I'm really thankful that we're in a discussion about these subtle energies, and that I am becoming more sensitive to these things. And I hope we can continue to have discussions about spreading life force energy among ourselves and tuning into it, and becoming aware of the power of who we are, because ultimately the world is made up of a whole bunch of individuals, and somebody somewhere issued a permit for what's going on that piece of land, and somebody somewhere decided to take on that project for capitalism, and somebody somewhere decided we were going to denigrate the land and destroy the ecosystems that were there. So if we can get more people feeling the impact of that, maybe we can get more people standing up and saying, yeah, we're not going to treat the land this way anymore. So there's big opportunity for change. So going to the electrosmog and EMF issue, can you talk a little bit about the type of meters that people are using and what they're actually measuring?
Well, yeah, if you look at the current EMF, electromagnetic radiation, the discussion, most people are again focused on the electromagnetic realm and measuring, the magnetism, or with like meters that really, like we were talking about earlier, only tap into a small percentage of what's there. But for every motion, there's also these secondary waves, these compression waves in the subtle realm, and they act more like a smog, and they're much more subtle, but they form these standing waves over time, to where you can see the smog in a city like LA or Mexico City on a visible day. Imagine this also on the subtle layers, the electrosmog of all the EMF, plus then all the smog created by our thoughts and the emotions. And I think it's Ibrahim Karim that says, kind of look at the rain being like the electromagnetic radiation, but then the fog that forms, that is basically of all those secondary waves that causes that. And that's a much bigger issue. It's not that electromagnetic radiation in that spectrum is not important, but because our science does not acknowledge these subtle realms, this electrosmog just keeps building. That is why people that maybe they shield or they're really careful about minimizing electromagnetic radiation, but still they have all these symptoms of their electrosensitivity, because this more subtle aspect simply is not acknowledged by science, right? And look at global warming, for example, right? They're all focusing on fossil fuels, but what does electromagnetic radiation do? It continuously heats up our atmosphere, so it basically dehydrates it. And so now they want to get away from fossil fuels and use even more EMFs and put even more EMFs into our atmosphere. And that's just not a good idea. It's like turning the whole world into a ginormous microwave. And I think a lot of that just stems from the fact that science does not acknowledge these more subtle forms of energy that affect us also on the mental and the emotional plane, right?
Absolutely. All right, thanks for jumping in on that. Got a little announcement. We have 3 Cosmic Tower 220s that we felt were important to place with regard to the project, and then they were always intended to move to a final home. The 3 towers are in Sedona and Asheville, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas. And we wanted to let you guys know about those, because if you're thinking about getting a 220, and you're within about 200 miles of there, then that would allow for a pretty reasonable shipping cost for us for moving it. And so we are willing to give a discount on those 3 220s. You know, this is not a project where pricing and specials and discounts are part of the situation, and secure ownership and having something be where it needs to be and stay there is important to us. So we have those 3 towers in Sedona, Asheville, and Austin that are available for $1,500 off on the Cosmic Tower 220. And if you're a fit for that, please reach out to us, and we'll discuss whether it's a good partnership to move those to you. Nico, moving to the next question. Does the Cosmic Tower have anything to do with scalar waves? And if so, how does that work? What does that do? What effects might we experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, the Cosmic Tower creates scalar waves in a natural way. And, you know, we were earlier talking about the EMF and the more subtle, right? And the more subtle realms, and they're also being scalar waves. And the Cosmic Tower works on those subtle planes also by harmonizing, by connecting through these higher realms. And there are many scalar technologies, and we'll have John later that can talk about scalar. There's many technological ways of creating scalar technologies, and I think one of the issues is with the electronic ways of generating that, we have to make sure, of course, that we're not creating any electrosmog or side effects. And I think what makes the Cosmic Tower unique in its way of generating these scalar waves is that it's based on nature's principle by using natural elements, and mainly by the use of water. Right.
Do you want to get into the effects that we might experience from those scalar waves? Or you want to save that for the John part?
We'll let John go into that, and I can always piggyback on that later.
Okay, sounds good. Will the Mini protect against viruses when out in public while carrying it?
Well, you know, oftentimes we get questions, will it protect me from this? Will it protect me from that? Will it protect me? I would like to give another perspective, which is, if you're in the field of the Cosmic Tower, which is a harmonious field, your natural immunity will be higher, because the body can just function the way it's supposed to function. So instead of looking at like protecting against and eliminating, let's look at reconnecting through all the subtle planes, having more life force and having more natural immunity. That's how I would phrase that.
Awesome. What is the significance of the wolf logo on the back of the tower?
Yeah, I think I heard Harold explain that one time, if I remember correctly, about which wolf do you feed, the dark wolf or the white wolf. And it's in one of the Q&As, actually, Patrick. I can dig up his total explanation, but I believe it had something to do with that, with there also being a white wolf.
Did it also have to do with like a connection of the towers around the world, and how you know, the wolf's standing out there on its own, you know, attracting a network of harmonious? Do you remember that, or am I making it up? Because I might be.
I don't remember that exactly, but I'm gonna have to go look, because I don't want to put any words in Harold's mouth.
Okay, fair enough. Is it possible to see through the see light through the blue glass spheres on the front of the tower?
Yes, I think oftentimes you'll just see the reflection of the light coming in, and you know, there is a ray of light that kind of comes off the tower. But I know Harold also talked about people that were really working with their tower and having a lot of energy being generated about the crystal lighting up inside, but I've not witnessed that myself.
Fair enough. Are there any 220s in Massachusetts aside from Halifax? And how close do the 220 have to be beneficial?
I think there's a bunch that cover that area, I don't know the geography too well. I think there's one in actual Massachusetts, and then we have a bunch more nearby. Now, if you look at a 220, it has a very big range where it can send energy and support another tower or do a particular task. But mainly, it's stable range that builds from the tower out. It's going to be less than the range that it can send energy, because it all depends of how much distortion is within that area, how many 5G antennas and other loads on the tower. So you can actually see it that it has a stable field, permanent field like around it that's strong, but then it can send anywhere within that range. It can send energy as needed. And I think this person is asking more about having a smaller tower. And do I benefit of the 220? Absolutely. They can help each other. The bigger towers, big part of their role is to provide that stable network and that support for the individual towers.
Right on. In terms of a little specifics that I know, we have one 220 in Massachusetts, but we have two in neighboring states. And one of the neighboring states covers Massachusetts 100%, and I think the other covers like 75 to 90%. I remember looking at it like it's toward the Rhode Island border-ish. So yeah.
I was actually looking with Mike last week at it, and we were working on some lakes there, and I know that lake was in range of like 4 220s.
Does the size of the tower determine the level of dimension it can connect with?
Yes, so Harold would explain it that the bigger towers were connected to higher dimensions, and also like the 35 and the 75 being more personally focused and on your family and your personal development, while the 220s and above were really more focused on supporting nature and the regeneration of nature and just support of their overall network. And so they have a bit of a different focus. And also, from my experience, it's a bit of a different feel between a 35, a 75, and a 220.
Right on. I'll take this next one. Why do you feel that the large towers, the 220s in Sedona, Asheville, and Austin need new homes? When we were setting out the original shipments, where we sent big truckloads to meet the original orders, we sent some extra devices to places that were on the path. So for example, we made a determination that Sedona was just an essential place to have a tower. A 220 tower. And so we sent one there, even though it wasn't paid for. And we knew that that would always be something that needed to be dealt with later. And so we're bringing that up, that we're ready to deal with that and figure out where those towers belong. So they were always helping support the network and taking advantage of transportation logistics. We already have actually a 250 tower set up in Nashville. And while we were transporting it there, it cost no more money to take a 220, so we did. So it's like that. And then just gonna finish up in the chat, Nico, and then we can go to John. So this one, I haven't read through fully, but let's see if I can tease this out. My cosmic tower is in the room where my TV is, but it's a little broken up here, Cassandra. So she's talking about her sleep. Is it important to have it close to me when I sleep, or can it go through walls? Let's focus there.
Yeah, it can go through the walls. I mean, there's scalar waves. And actually, when you first get your tower, depending on how used you are to those energies, maybe it's better to not have it right near you when you sleep, and then gradually move it. But yeah, when it's in your house, absolutely, it can go through the walls, no issue. Yeah.
And can her cosmic tower help her with special kinds of trauma or feelings?
Yeah, well, traumas and specific feelings that are stuck, they're basically blockages on more subtle layers, right, in the emotional and in the mental layer. And from my experience, the cosmic tower has a gentle ways of bringing those things up and to be addressed. I can tell from my own experience from having a tower more than a year and a half, is that sometimes it's hard work. I mean, we want to improve and we want to let go and release of those old patterns, and they're being brought up. So for me, that cannot be so fun at the moment, right, when you're dealing with those things. But then in hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, that's something I should have addressed a long time ago, or I'm glad that that dynamic came up, or that pattern, so I could address it. And you can always, yes, when you communicate with it, you can always ask it for support and to help you with these things.
Yeah, I find that those things don't go away because I own a cosmic tower. They just go smoother.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't rock the boat. I don't feel like I'm in jeopardy. I feel like, okay, like I'm a being who wants to move forward and understand life, and I'm going to keep learning, and some of that can be a little difficult, and I can be attached to it, but it feels easier, more graceful. Zane just turned his camera on, and I'm thinking of his tower named Grace, and graceful pops in. It's just, life is smoother. Yeah, really sweet. Nico, what are your thoughts about cleaning water and having a cosmic tower? This person's asking, do I need to clean my water anymore?
Well, Harold would talk about that quite a bit too. There's a few things to take into consideration, because the cosmic tower will cut the water structures, right? But Harold would say there's certain situations, if you live in a city where really the water is saturated with a lot of things that don't get filtered out, that's one scenario where Harold would say, yeah, you might still want to filter your water, because the cosmic tower doesn't have enough actual water to work with, because it's just so saturated with other things that are not getting filtered out, and then the water being recycled in cities. But like, when in doubt, like, always test and for yourself to see if it's good enough. It really depends on where you live. If the water is already like clean in your area, versus if you live in a city, maybe in New York City, Los Angeles, or those are two completely different situations.
Great. Is scalar wave or energy discovered by many scientists, including Nikola Tesla, naturally coming from all forces of nature, volcanoes, spring water, trees, etc.? And can it be measured to show how coherent the waves are with the human body?
Yeah, so scalar waves, of course, are a natural part of nature, right? And in the subtle realms, if you think about your thoughts and your emotions, your thoughts are faster than the speed of light, right? And you can look at those being scalar waves. But when we're talking about the issues with scalar waves, we're more talking about with man-made technology, right? And all these waves being put in the atmosphere and in the energy around us that are just not natural and that are devoid of life force. And can it be measured to show how coherent the waves are with the human body? So yeah, you have the vibrational radio aesthesia that the French have perfected for over 100 years, that you can measure it with, but it can also be measured on the body, right? Because in the science we've been taught in university, they exclude the human being of the equation, right? But one of the things is measuring the effect on the human being by measuring what's going on in the body and in all our layers when we're exposed, for example, to a detrimental form of scalar waves versus a natural and a beneficial one like the cosmic tower.
And Nico, you might want to be preparing for a little screen share here of the map of the bigger towers, and I'll ask the next question. While I'll give you a second to just be aware that that's coming up kind of in a couple of ways. Cassandra asked if, she says it's difficult for me to understand communication with the tower. Can you say more about how that's possible? And, I want to start that answer with pointing to the Art of Playfulness series that we did with 3 classes, because those 3 classes, which we just did recently, were very specifically targeted at that. And it doesn't do justice to give you a simple answer right now. What really does justice is to watch all 3 of those replays on the Art of Playfulness. And they were so profound. Like Nico just did an amazing job with that series. And, when he delivered the 3rd class, he basically knocked me out energetically. Like, I remember the subject line on the email that went out with the replay was Nico gives Patter the knockout punch, the energetic knockout punch. And I still haven't gone back to watch that, because I've been kind of on the run for a couple of weeks here, but I'm writing it down to make sure that I go back there. And I think we could all go back there multiple times. There was a lot in that series. And so I would recommend that as our answer to that. Do you want to add anything, Nico?
No, that's why we did that whole series. So yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. It's called The Art of Playfulness, and I have not double checked that it's on our YouTube channel, but it has to be on our YouTube channel. So just go to the Wellness Enterprise on YouTube, and it'll be there. And if you have any questions about locating stuff like that, you can just email support@thewellnessenterprise.com, and we'll help you out. All right. Okay, do you have a map of the large towers available today? Are you able to?
I don't, because I still have to adjust it so it doesn't show the location of the actual towers, but I can answer the question. I think in the Seattle area we have 2 big towers that cover that, and then Chicago region, yes, there's actually how many 2 weeks ago or so, Patter?
Yeah, I can give those updates. So we have a tower very close to Chicago now. It's reaching almost to Minneapolis and up in parts of Wisconsin, and it's really exciting to see a tower go to that part of the world. And then we have one arriving in Pennsylvania tomorrow. So I've been following the tracking on that one, and I think tomorrow is going to be delivery day. And then we have another one going to Toronto, and we're just working out the logistics of that. So that one hasn't shipped yet, but it's getting close. There aren't any in Vancouver, BC. However, we've got one close enough to the border in Washington to cover Vancouver. So Vancouver's covered even though it doesn't have one on its own. So I love how engaged you guys are on all the questions that you're asking, and we have a special guest. And so let's migrate now and jump into the next part of the conversation. And let's get John in here and introduce him, learn a little bit about his background and why we're talking with him today.
Yes, good. For the person, the name of the French who was measuring scalar energy, you have Constantine Myle, who did a lot of research. It's MEYL. And then for the French radiesthesist, you have Turenne, de Balezal, Chaumery, but I would refer to Ibrahim Karim's work with the biogeometry, and maybe Robert Gilbert at the Vesica Institute, because they talk at great length about that whole tradition and all the work that has been done where they've integrated that in their work. All right, John,
Okay.
you're up. I get a break. You're up.
Yeah. We have to get off camera.
Yeah.
Welcome, John.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are.
Yeah, hello.
How are you?
Yeah, it's so great to see you, and I'm a little bit envious of the wonderful time that you and Nico get to have together, spending time in Egypt. You and Nico just met this year, right?
Yes, we did, over the tower.
Amazing. And you were working with the EES system or the EE system still when you guys met, right?
That is correct. And I still do a little bit. It's
Okay.
It does some amazing things for some people in just a different way.
Right on. So
So
that's great. We're looking forward to bringing that story forward. Let's just give people a little bit of insight into your background so that they understand who's talking and you know, how you've invested your life and what you've been learning.
that's a good question. I've been involved in spiritual work since 19, and started transcendental meditation and studied soul mind control, and learned that I had psychic abilities and could definitely connect to objects and connect to people and give them insights. And then when I began to study martial arts under a true grandmaster who studied in a Shaolin temple and taught me how to heal, they said, if you know how to hurt, you have to know how to heal. And that really changed my focus in life. But I found out I had a gift to do that. So that's kept me in that space for a while. And I've always followed, I was a computers geek for 30 years, spoke for Adobe software, worked with clients such as Merck, American Airlines, Dell, developing tools for them, and just found it sort of drained my soul. So I gave that up and turned into the spiritual work and started working with Scalar technologies from the original Rife work, using plasma and Scalar to help heal myself. I have only one working lung, and I couldn't last more than 20 minutes at altitude without going on oxygen. In this last visit, 8 years later, after I started my recovery using Scalar technologies, magnetic therapies, all sorts of things, including Qigong, I am now lasting 6 hours at altitude, 6,600 feet without oxygen. And my doctor goes, this is not possible. I went, okay, I'll let you believe that. So
that space of this is not possible, I think, is one of my favorite. I've had a couple of calls, guys, with John, but not too many. Like, we don't really know each other yet. And you know, one of the things that I really enjoy about knowing you, John, is that I find you utterly reliable, because I know that you are connected to your creator and you are living in your truth. And so you may not be able to tell me anything about me for me, but you can tell me about you, and I can choose to apply that if I want to. So you have this feel to me of a very empowered being. And do you know what I mean?
well, I appreciate that. It's a lot of teachers and a lot of clearing energy and letting go of what doesn't belong anymore. I have a phrase I say, I ask any and all energies that no longer serve my highest purpose to leave me now. And that works.
Yeah.
Pretty regularly.
That's beautiful. Well, I think, you know, as all of us listen to John, and you all have the opportunity to ask him questions today too, he's modeling for us right here in real time how simple and direct his relationship with truth is. Like, we all wonder, like, how do I communicate with my tower? How do I come into alignment with my truth? Just listen to the words that he uses and the questions that he asks, and watch the way he is. That's how you do it. Like, we're getting the demonstration of it right now. So, you know, John, it takes a courageous being to keep at that over a period of decades and find who they are. And I want to acknowledge you for that, and thank you for the way you've invested your life so that you can help us understand.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. So now you guys have a little bit of sense of who you're talking to. And so how did you get involved with the EES system, and what would you say its strengths are? Like, how does it really serve people?
Well, I'm going to back up just a little bit to give you a little bit more history, how I got involved. I started working with Rife and using remote technologies. And Dr. William Tiller, who's a physics professor at Stanford, one of the things he said, you know, when you walk into a great cathedral or into Sedona, that energy is different, much, much different. He says, as physicists, we should be able to measure it, quantify it, and know it, but we don't. We don't look for that kind of energy. We're looking for things much more subtle and down to the atom and below that. But that field of energy that you feel, he says, it's noticeable. You walk in the Notre Dame in France, you feel it. Now, he says that's because people pray. Their intent is powerful. And I think that's the key thing that I've learned through life, because he actually took a device, put intent in it, and had that intent manifest in scientific experiments across the United States of lowering the pH of water 1 full point. And it always did within 30 days. It's just a little electronic box with a memory chip in it and a battery. And he was able to do that. And so I got the privilege of working with the Tiller Foundation for about a year and their remote project, sending intention to help autistic children around the world. And there's a number of published papers on that. So I know that the power of intention works. Now, one thing that they discovered, which is the reason I'm so drawn to the tower, is that when you put in a human intention into an object to send it somewhere, it faded over time. But when it was a natural space captured, and he put it into that system, it never faded because there's no human thought involved. Human thought is really our limits. And so anything we use to label, brand, frame, fence something in so we can understand it essentially removes the power of source, wherever you frame that, God, Buddha, Allah, whomever. It limits what they can do for us because they cannot violate our free will. So we have to give source permission to support us. We have to give the tower permission to support us. Those are the things that are really important to be a conscious contributor to your own growth and not expect something to do it for you and say, I'm wanting this, help me. And so that got me into learning about remote and all the things it could do. So when I experienced the EESystem, my guides or my intuition guided me to go to Vegas to work with it because I resonated very well with the doctor there, Dr. Stella. We had a great relationship, and over time we found that we wanted to go different directions with remote. And so I started working with other groups. And it's been an amazing thing because the EESystem does help a large number of people. But one of the things that I discovered when I went into EESystems is I am about EMF and EMF blocking. I sold a number of EMF blankets, a number of notable people around the world. When they traveled, they felt it, and they arrive with less jet lag. And it does really have an impact on you when you're in that metal box and Wi-Fi is going on. In fact, FAA has seen an increase in pilot sickness, as has the military with all the electronics in the planes. And DARPA's actually put out a study to research that, why they're getting so much sicker and getting more disoriented in the planes. So EMF is a big issue. So when I went into the EESystem, I put some of my EMF blankets on me, and the feel of the space was much different. I lost the buzz, and somebody says, well, I don't feel like it's working as well. Interesting, because I don't know that it was or wasn't, but it felt different because you are around, in some cases, the 24 unit. You've got 24 computers, 24 screens, 24 hard drives, electrical systems in there, all working. And we know that electricity and smart meters and the batteries that they have to put on the backups of these systems all have a electrosmog, as Nico mentioned earlier before. And so I found that having a clean source without human involvement is more powerful than anything I can produce with electronics. for me. Now, for others, that path might be part of your growth to get to a tower, to heal yourself so you're ready for a tower. That's your own path.
And when you say without human involvement, you're saying electricity as compared to like the cosmic towers are made by humans, but they're as natural as possible. Is that what you mean?
Well, yes, that is part of it, but the other part is human intent is faulted. Source knows better than me. I used to envision the perfect job, the perfect this, the perfect that. And there was always something missing that I never really considered. So what I found that when I said, Source, bring me my perfect job, it was much better than I could have imagined.
Mm-hmm. Was there a time period as you were getting to know the EESystems where it had a particular effect on you? And is there anything you can say about that?
Well, it definitely gave me momentum to create more shifts. And I did feel a positive change in my body. I did work with Scalar with Rife. I did work with plasma with Rife. And talking about electronic-based technology, I said, I'm a Texan, so more is better, right? So I used to use the plasma every night when I went to sleep because they had this restorative thing. It was an 8-night overnight thing. And I'd have the plasma tube right by me, beside my bed when I'd sleep, because I had tubes that had different distances. I put the big one on so it could really penetrate my body. And then one of my friends called me and says, I don't know what you're doing, but I can feel your body being overamped over here. One of my psychic buddies. And I said, really? He says, yeah. You feel real buzzy and sort of nervous and jittery? I went, yeah. I said, well, you're overdoing it. Cut out the plasma, move to Scalar. So I moved to Scalar and I felt better, but it was still not the right solution for me because it still required me to do something with it to apply it to myself. And I felt that was my problem because my mind can make a choice, because my mind can justify anything. Oh, well, I must use the lung. And it really could have been another system that needed support, but my mind said lung. And so I wouldn't get well. So, but I do have a story that I can share of a friend of mine that does have a tower and has had experience with EESystems. If this is the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Any follow-up to what I've said so far?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have this extended family. I've known them for a number of years now, and they have a child with a diagnosed condition called ring of fire in the brain. It was done by the Amen Institute, which is one of the leading brain researchers in the US, with offices in DC and Seattle and San Diego, I believe, or San Francisco. And they have mapped the brain. They did mine as well, because I thought when I lost my lung, I got hypoxia, where my O2 was falling down to 72 at night. And it took me a long time to recover. And it was diagnosed in my brain. And they saw every injury I had from childhood in the effects of my brain, which is rather fascinating. Oh, you've been hit hard here. You've been hit hard here. Yep, that was getting hit by an axe. This was getting hit by a round kick when I was martial learning. Okay, so her brain condition is sort of a Jekyll and Hyde thing. And they've taken her to EESystems. They've done all kinds of therapies. They've tried meds. They've tried everything to get her to where she's normally this loving child. But when the switch flips, it is just like the most stubborn person that just won't agree to anything and gets her temper aggravated, and it's just not pretty. So while I was traveling, I took my tower up to them and loaned it to them so they could experience it, because I felt it was going to be a good fit for them. And when they moved that tower too close to the child's bedroom, they said, I don't know what's going on, but my daughter is so loving, I can't believe it. This is the daughter I've always wanted. And she says, I'll call you in a week because it's vacation time. And so I got a call 3 days ago. She says, okay, I'm in. Says, my daughter's been amazing ever since we put the tower in. And so they've tried all the other things to do it. But when we work with something that's more natural, it works as an undercurrent, and it essentially erodes all the things away that no longer fit. And so now she's come back to her true self. And she's off all her medication at this point.
That's amazing. Hey, if we go back to basics for a second, this
Sure.
community has been trying to answer what the tower is and what dimension it's in and what level of consciousness. What if we asked you the question, like, what would you say the cosmic tower is, and where is it coming from in terms of language that might help us understand it? I might not even be asking the question in vocabulary that makes sense to the way you speak, but I think you get the direction of where I'm going.
I think it's the intent. Plain and simple. This is not well, how would I frame this and be not rude to some people? Well, we know that most American businesses are about profit, and it's profit, 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 more than the value that they add. And I feel the tower is about value with a reasonable profit to operate a business and be able to grow a business. And to me, that's when I looked at the tower and I saw the quality of the work that was done. And I've been a woods craftsman and part of my career, and I know the quality of woodwork that's done, and it's 10 out of 10. And I look at it and the seams are just gorgeous. It's just beautiful work. And I went, okay. And then I got to work with one and visit Nico when he was in Texas. And I got to stand in the space of it. I went, okay, now I get it. It's like standing in a vortex of Sedona, but smoother. And that's what I like about the tower. It's a smooth energy. It's not beating you on the head. It's not trying to rip things apart like plasma does. It's not trying to interpret. It's not having a person telling me what I need to do with it. It knows what to do, but I just had to give it permission to do it.
That's really interesting.
Did that sort of help?
Yeah, well, it's funny. You just connected some dots for me that I've never been able to put together. So I remember on like my 5th trip to Sedona, I got in at like 2 a.m. and I had to get up at 7, and I was sharing a room with my boys and I didn't want to wake them. So I went out and got in my truck and I was like, it's just one of those days. I'm tired. I don't feel very good. I'm a little cranky. Like, that's just the way it is. So just diminish your expectations and relax. And I drove to where I could see some of the beautiful red rocks, and I started making phone calls. And after about an hour of sitting in the truck making phone calls, I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, I'm happy, I'm energized, I feel right. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it was like, I didn't know I had a hypothesis going, but I basically can't be unhappy in Sedona. Like, I just love it there. And,
Yes.
and this is like that. This is like,
It
it
is.
just creates a harmonic environment.
I agree. And the thing that I get to is because I've gotten situations with my body that are, quote, painful, unquote, and I call them chatty. My body's chatting to me today. It's very chatty. It's not very chatty because I don't want to give it any power, because my thoughts have power. And that's what Dr. Tiller taught. He says, everything you think is an intention. And if that intention is going to manifest, do you want it to manifest? And so I learned to sort of not judge what shows up. Just go, interesting. I'll see what this means later. And it's taken a lot of the, what I'll call challenging power out of things. When I see something happen to me I don't like, I go, ugh. I don't go, oh my God, I don't want this to happen. I don't get all, flustered and up. I just go, okay. It's okay. And so I just accept it as part of my path. And the sooner I learn the lesson, the easier the path will be, because the lesson will repeat with increasing power until I get it. And then it'll be gone. And so for me, that was probably the next learning point for myself, is just walk through the lesson, go deep, go through it, and you're done. And you can do it in minutes sometimes. It's that quick if you try not to control it.
Right on. Yeah, just let it flow through. I love that you're circumventing the language that wants to run, and you're saying, no, just ugh, like just put a sound to it, or just let it be without getting too into the story of it to reinforce it. I really like that. So would you say that your power or your relationship to intention has changed since you started living with the Cosmic Tower?
I would believe it has. I think it's gotten cleaner because it's allowed me to see. I said, hey, if my guides, my spirit, my higher self is with me, give me a sign. And I said, and then I heard butterflies. But okay. And so the next day in February in Texas, where there are no butterflies in Texas during February, I have a monarch butterfly land on my shoulder. It stays there. I get my camera out. Can I take some pictures? Sure. Click, 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 click. Hey, could you open your wings? Click. It was there and it flew off. And then I kept seeing butterflies for like 3 days. So you can ask Source to show you that they're there. And they will do something rather amazing to surprise you if you give them permission. I have 3 phrases. I say yes to Source being involved. I give it permission to do what's in my highest good. It only will. It's just our ability to interpret it as not being good is what holds us back. And I get permission, I say yes, and I allow this to happen for my highest good. And that sort of overrides the free will that Source cannot violate without our permission. And when you do that and you get your left brain shut down, actually, there's a great TED Talk by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor called Stroke of Insight. And she's a brain specialist to help her brother, who's schizophrenic or manic depressive or bipolar, that's what it was. And she has a stroke. And she goes through this moment where she says, I'm one with everything. I feel big, I feel powerful, I feel love, I feel like massive. And then she goes, my left brain kicks in. She goes, oh, I'm alone. Something's wrong. I know something's wrong. I felt scared. I felt fearful. She felt all these things. It's a great TED Talk. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, Stroke of Insight. Highly recommend that. Very good speaker, very passionate. She shows the 2 brains are very separate. And the more we shut off our left brain, which is the one that focuses on details and details about the details and the justifications and the rationalizations and the judgments. Because as soon as we make a judgment, we go to our past to find out what it was and what it's going to mean in our future. And we're not in the present moment. And when you get in the present moment, some amazing things can be seen and experienced. And the tower allows me to get into that moment more than I have been in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. So I think there's an opportunity maybe to go a little deeper here. You know, maybe half the people on the call have cosmic towers and half are, you know, listening to potentially having one and understanding what this is like. And, you know, this is really for the ones that have it, that feel like they don't know how to really engage with it most fully. You know, can you remember what it's like to be in that place where you have something like the cosmic tower and you say, I can't feel anything from it, or I don't know how to use it, or you know, other people are getting these benefits from it, but how do I do that? And you know, I think what you just said is already applicable to those people, but I just wanted to tease it out a little further and see if there's anything else that you wanted to help on the journey for those people.
Well, if you do say, I don't feel it, add the word yet to the end of it. because you have to allow for the possibility. Because you say, I can't feel it, guess what? You just set an intention, right? And so just say, I haven't felt it yet. And you can say, help me feel it. Help me connect to you, right? I give you permission to do that. Make sure you say, I give you permission. I say yes, and I want this to happen. And you've got to be still. And sometimes we're so unaccustomed to connecting to something outside of ourselves, we don't really know what to expect. And we expect this woo-woo, great, oh, I feel the light coming through my head, it's expanding my body. And, yeah, maybe, maybe not, right? Depends on your path. And I found it's a more subtle energy. It's more like, hi, what you doing? And it's more, it takes a moment to get to where you can disconnect the left brain from the process. So when you get into meditation, you know, some people do mantras, some of them do breathing techniques where you count in and you count out. And the reason we do the counting and the mantras is to keep the brain engaged. Because if we don't do something to get the brain focused, we'll never feel anything. Because the mind will be going, okay, I don't feel anything yet. What should I be feeling? I don't know what I'm feeling. I mean, shouldn't I have something yet? I mean, I've been doing this for weeks, right?
Yeah.
Never done that. So it's more just about allowing the process to unfold, and don't get too impatient with the process, because when we do set that intention, I can't feel it. Guess what? You won't.
Yeah,
So,
and, you know,
yeah.
now that I'm on the road, I've been living with a 220 for a couple of weeks, like multiple feet away from me. It's like right there. And I actually hug it fairly often. And I walk in the room and I'm just like, you know, just like so excited. And when I came to the mainland, I flew to Wyoming, and then I drove from Wyoming to Texas. And it was funny, as I started to get close to Texas and this home and this community where I spent a couple of years, a bunch of thought patterns started to come up that are not part of my reality. And that the act of being in the harmonic field and then being out of the harmonic field is really big. You know, it's a really big difference. And so sometimes the best way to get at it is by continuing to engage and be soft with the process. And sometimes it's to get out of the field and then come back into it and find out what that's like. And you know, fortunately, the location here in Texas is where we keep the majority of the towers. So I'm good here. I'm sitting about 8 miles away from a Cosmic Tower 250 right now. Did you have something?
Yeah, and so when I took my tower down to take it to my friends in Indiana, I really noticed it, whereas day to day, I didn't notice its presence. So if you want to feel the difference, take your tower down for a day or two. Turn it on its side graciously. And when you put it back up, you'll notice the difference. Yeah. And that's when you can say, oh, welcome back.
Yeah, I think it's a powerful concept. When I was coming to understand structured water, and really just at the beginning of that journey 10 years ago, I used to do something called 3 days on, 3 days off, which is any water source, any question that I had to answer about RO or distilled or, you know, carbon filters or then structured water devices, and which one, I would just choose one way of treating my water for 3 days, and I would do that. And then I would stop and I would do something else. And it doesn't take many repetitions for the body to go, no, stop. Like, we don't need to repeat that one anymore. Like, this is the one we want to be on. And so I hadn't really thought about that applying to the Cosmic Tower, but it completely does. So really great.
You can definitely feel it.
Yeah. So, you know, I really like kind of leaning into you like a big brother and a mentor in life, and like, you know, all that time and energy. Yeah, it's heartfelt. You know, it's really sweet to meet you and to get to know you. And you have this particular expertise around the EE system that you've lived experience, and most of us don't have the compare and contrast of the EE system and the cosmic tower. You do. So I want to shift back to there for a minute and see if
Yes.
really get at any way of framing this question and letting you go wherever you want to go around comparison, around the differences. Let's just start in there and see. You've already brought some of it forward, but let's see what else we can bring out in this part of the conversation.
Well, I do think, so I've spent roughly 60 plus hours in EE systems. I've done probably 3 overnights. No, it's probably 90 hours now. I've done 3 overnights. And when I first got into the first night, it was really pushing me. I couldn't sleep. You're not allowed any electronics in there, which I normally would listen to an audiobook or something, you go to sleep. So I had none of those repetitive patterns that I do that calm me down, because my mind's fairly active. And when I finally got to sleep, I had some very interesting dreams. I had all kinds of spiritual experiences. And so I do think it addresses where you're at. But I think it's more of a stick than a feather, for lack of a better term,
Okay.
for me. Now, other people have had some amazing results where they've not, but well, I did discover there's different settings on EE systems, and it does require a dedicated power source. It does require a filtered power source. It requires backups on the equipment. There's lots of prerequisites to make sure it's working right. And it's tuned to a particular way, and if somebody actually bumps the tower, it can misalign the energies. And I think that's not as stable a situation for many. I have found that the intent of the owner does affect the quality of the session sometimes, and that is not something I would have expected. I thought, it's technology, but there is certainly a energetic alignment with where it's located. And one of the things that I did notice when working with one of the groups I work with, we were measuring the millivolts in their body before and after a session. And then we measure it after they left the building and a week after. And we found that some people drop within minutes after leaving in high EMF environments, such as Las Vegas. And they would drop from 70 millivolts down to 50. And some would drop as low as 35 within a week, which means the EE system wore off over time. And that was one of the reasons that the remote services supported it, because it would keep them at around anywhere from 40 to 55, depending upon the person and their environment. So it is a dosing, and that's what I like about the tower, is that for what I've spent in sessions, I could own a 75. And I get it 24/7, 365, and it doesn't cost me a penny electricity. And I like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that feature. I love that all of us can choose to spread these towers around this country, and that we can then live in them, and we can know about it, and we can, when we're 200 miles away from the one that's near the Chicago area and we're passing through, we can focus our intent on it and be supported by it. And nobody takes that away from us. We just get to live with that amazing support.
Yeah, it is. And so when we started seeing that all these voltages would drop, that's, I think, a situation with everyone. And I think there's a lot to say in positive about an EE system if you need it. And that's a personal journey. And I won't say anything negative about it, because I know it's helping a a lot of people, has helped a lot of people. Do I think the tower could have done the same thing? Absolutely. I think it would have done it with a little more gentle approach. Because you do have to do the salt bath. They recommend the salt and the detox bath after a session. And they do sell the salt, borax, and baking soda charged devices or charged salts for you to take a bath in after your EESystem sessions. And that's what I used to do back 20 years ago when I was a full-time computer nerd. I did baking soda and sea salt to pull the EMF out of my body. So that's part of their standard practice. And upping your minerals. You know, EMF is not real friendly with minerals.
Gotcha. So, you guys, if you have questions for John, this is time to start thinking about what those are. And yeah, so summarizing a little bit, John, your experience is that the EES is a little less stable in terms of the environment that it creates.
Well, I would say it's not. It's like taking it's like taking some medicine. You got to take it every now and then to keep the effect going.
Mhm. So it needs to be re-upped.
Well, let's say we've got rubber bands attaching us to things that are holding us back in our lives, right? Whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whichever. And the system, EESystem, will move you through that process and get you beyond that. In some cases, enough to break the rubber band so you're not being held back. But if you don't get to the point or can't afford to get to the point where you can break the rubber band, you're going to be pulled back some. It won't be as far because the system sort of stretches the band in the process. But, you know, it's not, I'm going to start here and I'm going to move to here. And it's not going to pull me back some when I get back in an environment that doesn't have that scalar energy field from EESystems working on me full time. And having something in your home that has a scalar field based on water, torsional fields, sacred waters, and a crystal that operates without electricity is just so beautiful to me. I love it.
That's beautiful. Do you have anything further to add on the differences and comparisons part right now?
I wish I knew about the tower before I invested
Yeah.
what I did in EE time wise.
Yeah.
But I don't discount what it did for me, because it definitely did some things and I learned some things through the process. I learned the power of intention and how the intention of the owners affect the results of the systems. And that was something that I did not expect, to be honest. And with the tower, we know the intention that created them was quite clean from everything I can deduce on my end. And to me, that's worth gold. To know that I'm not having someone turning the knobs on the equipment constantly. Once the equipment's in your hands, it now, just like a great pet. Once they get to know you, they're the most loving things in the world. And I think the tower is the same way.
That's great. I want to go to a really simple, basic question about the cosmic tower. So from a literal standpoint, it is maple wood, glass, highly charged and cultivated water, and crystal. How does that create a scalar wave?
Well, in martial arts, we used to do this technique where you do a counterclockwise on someone's field in front of them. You have them close their eyes and you can push them down with your little finger. Right? But you'd always have to fix their field by going clockwise. And so I think the water spins clockwise and counterclockwise, which is the torsional field, the tube torus type field, the donut per se. And that's what black holes are. And that's where time stops. That's where everything changes when you go through those kind of fields. And it produces that field. It's not producing an electronic waveform, which to me is the big difference.
That really captures it right there. The EESystem is creating an electronic waveform, and the cosmic tower is creating something akin to a black hole, a place where time stops.
Just like the vortexes in Sedona, they're spinning. I mean, you can see the trees doing all this sort of distortion, trying to stay with the field of the stuff. You can go, if you get pictures of Sedona, some of the vortexes, you'll look at the trees and they're twisting because they're following the natural field.
Yeah, I've gone to places in Sedona that I've had experiences that when I went back and told the teacher I was staying with, like, hey, I just had this experience of immense fear coming up in on this collection of rocks. He's like, well, that was Warrior Rock. That's where you go to get your fears brought up. And I was like just how amazing, right? That it's just there in the land. And I didn't really know until we started today how much I actually know the feeling of the cosmic tower by virtue of the way I know Sedona. It's pretty funny. I got my Sedona water sweatshirt on today, and I'm going to Sedona in about a week. Sedona's really important to me, and I didn't realize it's been showing me all along what the cosmic tower is doing. We're just bringing a little bit of Sedona to us.
Well, another point that I might bring up is Dr. Emoto's work with the pictures of water for intention. And water holds intention better than anything. And if you bless your water, or you put it on a clearing plate or on a Metatron cube or whatever you're drawn to, or a cross or whichever, you can taste that water and it's different. And you've got water inside the cosmic tower. You don't have water in an EESystem. So it can't adapt to you. You adapt to it.
Wow. So would you say that the cosmic tower 220 with a diameter of 500 miles is influencing the water in a 500-mile range?
If it's asked to, yes, it will automatically, but its focus is where it's given permission to go sometimes. So we look at the layers, there's layers that operate without human intervention to change the world. I mean, we had Aurora Borealis in Texas last night or the day before. I mean, when has that ever freaking happened, right? The Aurora Borealis has gone from greens and blues to reds and oranges and all these other colors, and they're going, what's going on? You know, and I believe the sun's sending us brand new energies to help us shift the planet. And I think that's why we're seeing red Aurora Borealis in freaking Texas. You know, I drove all the way to Idaho to see it. I didn't see it. I could have just driven to Amarillo, you know.
Yeah.
Much different drive.
I have this this vague understanding of ourselves as beings of light, and the concept of that the sun is sending us different light is just immensely appealing to me. And I just love that. And I know the sun is different, and I get the concepts, and on a level I understand. It's probably on the deeper level where I just know, you know, we're being we're being evolved at a faster pace, and that takes support, and nature is giving it to us. So I'm
Yeah,
not surprised by changes like
it's
that.
fully supporting us right now.
Yeah, and so people are just breaking wide open, just having new realizations and new freedoms with living. It's extraordinary. It's our time. You know?
Yeah, it is.
It's our time. John, I don't know if you're going to want to speak to this or if you have knowledge of it, but it's asked. So, and you're here as our question answer at the moment. So we'll give it a try.
All right.
Will med beds replace the cosmic tower in EES?
Define what a med bed is.
Yeah,
Would be my first question. So here's what I understand many people's thoughts. It's Star Trek, and you put them on the bed and you can heal them. Well, I've witnessed, and so has Nico, Qigong masters reducing the size of a tumor with their hands and sound. So do we need a med bed? That's electronic. I mean, people can reduce the tumors with their hands and sound from Qigong. And he's seen that done in China, and I've seen that done as well. So, if we're looking about healing, healing is done through energy. Energy is done through a physical layer, through a chemical process. It's done through a middle layer, through learning to change our thought patterns or masking our emotions or our thoughts with the drug. And then we feel wonderful again. And the emotions, is therapy or another drug, right? But you can change all of that with the right energy, right? A tumor can go away with sound and, right? And so what's possible? I think it's limited by what we can accept as possible.
Well, I like hearing that from a man with one lung who's surviving at altitude. Good job.
Yeah, I mean, I went to 7,500 feet without oxygen last visit to New Mexico and Colorado. 7,500 feet walking. I couldn't walk and talk, but I could walk. And that's my friend who's a doctor. He says, dude, the first time you came to me after losing your lung and you're up here at altitude, you were pale white. You're whiter than the freaking snow. You had no blood working for you. And he says, I was afraid you're going to have a heart attack right there. And what's interesting is that this time he's going, dude, you look great. You're walking around, we're talking, we're cooking, we're having a beer, we're just having a good time. But, yep, we don't know what's possible. So allow for the possibility.
Yeah. Awesome. You guys, this is my last question for John, and I certainly don't want this opportunity to end. So if you have more questions, it's time to get ready to raise your hand or put it in the chat. So John, the last one I have for you right now is, how does the tower help with geopathic stress?
Run that by again.
How does the tower, the cosmic tower, help with geopathic stress? Can you speak at all to how it impacts ley lines and the land, the earth?
Well, in the science I have studied, if we have a scale, and what we normally do to try to balance it is add more good stuff to counter the bad. When you're working at the energetic layer, you can actually move the center point of the scale, so the fulcrum is totally different. So the same amount of good balances the bad, and if you move it far enough, it actually gets rid of the bad. So the tower is more of one of those center point moving tools than trying to add more pharma or whatever to the other side of it to bring things back into balance. But Nico might be able to talk about that better. I think so. He's nodding his head. So I'll let him take that one.
Good.
Oh no, he's going to keep going. And yet, I'm good.
Let's see if anybody wants to raise their hand. This is the time if you want to ask a question live. Nico, okay, I see you, Rick. Nico's available too, guys. So yeah, all three of us are here for you. And Rick, looks like you're already unmuted. So great. Jump right
So
in.
John, I mean, you just told me the most wonderful, beautiful story. And my journey is to try to somehow regrow my lungs. I had 5 cancers. The last one was lung cancer. It was short-lived. But during the esophageal cancer, I got pneumonia. And it damaged my lungs terribly. And that put me on oxygen. And so I do have a 220 tower. And so I've been trying to live a circadian life, keep myself earthly grounded as much as I possibly can. And I pray daily and I meditate for 2 hours a day. And
Awesome.
any suggestions that you might give me in terms of meditating, I've been trying to employ at night. I listen to YouTube videos that just do affirmations all night. And all it does is say, positive. I love, I'm strong, I'm confident, so it's the I am statements. So I've been trying to program myself at night for that. And well, so I would like, if possible, if you would be generous to allow me to contact you, and maybe we could have a discussion about things that you might suggest beyond what I'm already doing. If that would
You might look up rhodiola, which is an herb I take at rhodiola, Rodeila, I think.
Okay.
It's an herb that increases your oxygen. I used a lot of pulse magnetic therapy to help keep my blood from breaking apart or collecting, because the magnetic charge we get in our bodies, you can take walks in nature to reconnect your body to the earth. That would be useful as well, because it's going to make your blood operate a little better.
Now, what was that? Was the second one you said?
So getting connected to the earth,
Right.
without rubber-soled shoes would be good, because it does
I
help
do.
your
So
body.
my shoes are grounded shoes. So when I'm outside, I'm grounded. Everything I have grounding pads inside my house to ground myself.
That's all good.
Yeah.
And I did. Yeah, so we'll take this offline and have another conversation, because
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I mean,
yeah.
you obviously have done this route, and everyone tells me you can't grow lungs. I said, well, I'm sorry, but I need to. So that's not an option for me to accept that. Okay. So I reject that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And mine was not an overnight success. Let me be candid about that. It's taken me 8 years to get to this point.
Yes.
And I've used probably 15 different therapies in the process, bringing me to the cosmic tower.
Well, that I'm even alive surprises me after my 5 cancers. But I said, God put me here for a reason. It must be He wants me to continue fighting. So that's it.
Okay, I will get with Nico and have him share the information. Reach out to
I appreciate that.
and reach out to the team, and we'll get your information to me, and we'll go from there.
Appreciate that so much.
Certainly, my pleasure.
Fantastic.
John, I appreciate you connecting with Rick, and Nico has his contact info. He'll help you out with that. If people are really drawn to you, do you have an aspect of the way you engage in the world where you work with people one-on-one as a business offering, or is this?
Yeah, my website is not current, but it's johnhead.net, and they can go up there and look. Some of the videos that I mentioned are up there, and I would love feedback on it. And just johnhead.net.
Okay, great.
And it's got to contact me and everything from there.
Just put it in the chat, guys. So when you come across somebody like John and he's available for communication, sometimes it's really amazing to be able to reach out. So if you have a burning thing you want to get in touch with him about, now you know how. Anybody else want to raise their hand? Yeah, Zane.
I just want to say that I had an opportunity to marriage the two, the EES, the Energy Enhancement System, and my CT75, and the owner of the place let me bring it there, and I set it up, and I was able, I did standing posture meditation for 2 hours, and I haven't been able to do that because of my physical condition, but things are changing and anything is possible. I just,
Absolutely.
beautiful resonance. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, if you find the right owners with the right intent, you are correct. Anything is possible.
Yes. Thank
That's
you.
good to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Zane. Anybody else? Coming around to you last, Nico, if everybody's set with their
All
question.
right. Well, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
John, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, John. I just wanted to add something. When the question was being asked about the med beds and the geopathic stress, we're again focused on the human being as separate from its environment. I need to be healed. No, you are one with the environment. You are connected to the trees. You are nature. Nature is within you. You are living not on the earth, within the atmosphere of the earth. So, like, yeah, med beds to maybe heal some aspects of you individually. Yeah, but who's going to heal nature? And I feel like who's going to support nature and the cosmic towers with the big towers? It's all about not seeing ourselves as separate from nature. When nature is not doing well, so when the trees are not doing well, we're not doing well either, because we are an open system. We are a part of the environment. And with the geopathic stress, it's the same thing. I mean, there's scalar waves coming off of it, but we have power spots on the earth, and we have sacred spots that create a balance. Now, with the cosmic towers, there are like portable power spots, and it's all about finding the balance back and helping and assisting to bring back the balance. And I really want to invite people to not look so much at the personal and as your body being separate, but you being a part of the environment on all levels.
I'm so glad you keep leading us back to a wider, more spacious worldview, mostly like really selfishly, because I keep changing and I keep getting softer and finding more freedom, and that it's worth its weight in gold. And so, yeah, it's amazing that we get to share that, but that I get to live in that and share it with you guys, whoever wants to like bring in that morphic field together and understand it together. It's one of the greatest blessings that I'm experiencing right now. So, Nico, thanks for bringing it. You just keep pushing the envelope and pushing us into that place where we get this momentum of our wholeness. And it's a real remedy for the crap that's lived in my head for decades. And you guys, if we can get this head cleared out and living harmonically, we can do it with anybody. So you know, there's been a lot to work through. So thank you, Nico. That's really beautiful. I'm realizing there's another word to say about the status of the project, which is that there's some interviews that are about to happen with Nico, and that's going to put the Cosmic Tower message in front of more people than it's been in front of at any time before. And at some moment here, those people are just going to come and buy up the remaining inventory. And inventory is not certain. We're living in a space right now of not knowing the future of the project. But you guys have been with us from the beginning. Some of you have been adding along the way. Just want to have those of you who are thinking about towers be thinking about them. Like, I think this was a powerful conversation that brings forth why they're so important. And if you think you're going to get one at some point, I want to make sure you get one while we have them. So, because the moment's going to come where things just take off. So just fair warning now, early, before that's about to happen. But once that ball starts to roll down the hill, it's just going to go fast. So it's the first time we've said anything like that publicly. And I feel like in this conversation, it was time to say it, because this is so sacred and so special. And I wouldn't want any of you to miss out that thought you were going to get to be a part of having it personally. And no matter what you choose, like across this country, we have put a substantial network up already. And so you can always use your focused intent. And I see some smiles and recognition in the people who own big towers and are part of that. And it's special what we've done together. It's really special. And you guys that own them, like, it's a treasure, and you have it. And you guys that don't own them, it's a treasure that we get to access it. And you get to access it through your free will and your intent. So everybody's in, but some people want to be in a little bit more and in different ways. And just wanted to stoke those embers gently while we're together and the audience is still this size. Geez, just big heartfelt thanks. Thanks for coming out today, guys. Thanks, John Head, for contributing to our community. Thanks, Source, for introducing Nico and John. Yeah, thanks for all of it. It's really amazing to be a part of this. I'm so thankful to be living a life with meaning. So that's all I got. Nico, you want to say anything else? We'll close it up.
No, thank you everybody for being here and all your support. We appreciate it. It's good to see you all.
All right, love you guys. We'll see you next month for the next Q&A and ongoing throughout the month for different Livanya and the Wellness Enterprise events. Take care.